Hi, my name is AJ Banjo. I am an artist manager and founder of Passion You Feel Records. I've been working in the music industry in both major labels and independent scene for close to 7 years. Now, in this episode, I want to look at the question of what is the value of music? Who gets to decide it? And as artists today, how should you value your music? So, I hope you're excited for this video and let's get into it. So, to start off with, we need to look at where we currently are now when it comes to the value of music. We see the value of music primarily being dictated by the streaming companies. That's Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music. And a lot of these companies operate under a subscription model of around $10.99 where fans now have access to all the music, and these platforms typically pay artists less than a penny per stream. you know there are other platforms such as Bandcamp and Even that allow artists to sell their music directly to their fans, and it gives artists a lot more control over setting the value and worth of their own music. I want to take a second to talk about the subscription model from these platforms because it really does highlight why questioning who gets to dictate the value of music really matters. Because if you're an artist that is putting a lot of time, effort, and money into their music, that same music that you're producing is being valued the exact same way as someone who doesn't spend a lot of time, who may just make something quickly on Fruity Loops and distributes it through DistroKid. That all those sounds and albums are being valued the same under the $10.99 model. And that's not even talking about the fact that payouts are the same, with less than a penny per stream. But when we look at the value of music today, I think the question goes deeper than just streams, royalties, and selling your music. Because something that Spotify, TikTok, and now Suno have in common, other than being massive tech companies, is they are able to understand that the value of music goes beyond just how much they are able to sell the music for. Because music has the ability to connect people, it incites emotions, and it's an expression of human creativity. And these companies have been able to exploit those intangible values in order to build billion-dollar companies, whilst artists and creatives and teams fight for the scraps that they hand out. I used to produce a podcast for a company called Ghana Ghost Records, and in one of the episodes we interviewed the former head of data, Warner, and he said something really interesting about platforms like Spotify and TikTok and how they have exacerbated this race to zero. Here's a clip.
So I've given away as much as I can for free, and my view on the market is it's kind of in a race towards zero, unfortunately, in one sense. But then I've got a platform like TikTok arriving, which in a sense again is escalating this race towards zero. And when I talk about like zero revenue, I'm now having to give people more of myself for still no money on TikTok. But TikTok,
then it comes to the point of, as well as trading relationships, you're also trading attention, because attention is a currency as well in itself.
Oh, mate, you've just said it better than I am.
Now, in this clip, he's talking about how artists have to give so much of themselves on these platforms, whether that's producing content on TikTok or the whole creative process of making music, for essentially zero. Like I said before, a stream is worth less than a single penny, and on TikTok, payouts are difficult for artists to make money off of these platforms. And in the same time as you're making music, you're having to produce content on a mass scale. It's something that a lot of artists haven't signed up for, all for the hopes of gaining, virality with the hopes of making money off of these platforms. And I think for artists, especially now, especially independent artists who may not have the financial backing of a major, artists are now questioning whether this deal is really worth it, whether the promise of reaching a mass audience on these platforms really makes up for the lack of control over the value set on your music. I wrote an article on the late great Nipsey Hussle on how he sold a mixtape famously for $100. And at the time, a lot of people thought that it was crazy that he sold a mixtape, and would wonder like who is gonna pay for a mixtape that cost that much, and it seemed like just a gimmick. But the thing is, Nipsey understood that the value of music goes beyond just listening to music, and he understood that his value stemmed from the connection that he had with his fans. You see, he didn't just sell a mixtape. He sold exclusive merch. He sold handwritten notes to fans. It was access to the notebook that he would write his lyrics, private concerts. You see, he understood that fans loved him, his music, and he had built a community of people that related so heavily to him and his work that they were willing to spend more in order to connect with him further. You see, that human connection that music elicits, that ability for you to return to a track when you're feeling good or having a bad day, that those intangible attributes that music has and the emotion that music elicits is where the true value comes from. Yet, because we can't write it down in an audit, and it doesn't have the same sort of notion that virality does, we don't value that in the same way. I remember being in a studio once with an artist, and he was doing just vocal runs, and I remember whilst he was just singing, I got goosebumps. And I remember thinking, it's crazy that you as an artist, just living in your passion, performing, singing, is able to elicit this physical reaction in me. And it just made me question that, yes, music is able to bring in streams and revenue, but music is also able to make us feel something. There are artists that have been, there are artists and albums that have been soundtracks to moments in my life. I remember the first show I went to and how I felt being able to experience music live. All of these intangible things is what drives the music industry, is what drives passion, it is what drives fan connection, and yet we don't value it in the same way that we do all these other metrics. And we've allowed platforms, tech companies, to extract all of that value and extract all of that human connection and creativity in order to fund and build their businesses and make their businesses more attractive to people. And yet artists are the ones who have to struggle in order to gain the scraps from these companies, when they are the ones who are creating those pieces of work that makes people feel. I think for artists today, when the game feels so saturated and when AI music is becoming ever more prevalent, I think that human connection is more relevant than ever. We're entering this new space where value isn't dictated by trends and virality and algorithms, but instead by community, connection, and passion. I truly believe that this is the space in which artists are able to take back control over the value of their music. When you look past the numbers and the noise, artists, you hold something that is immeasurable. You're able to create art through your pain, through your emotions, through the highs and lows, and you should be the one who owns and dictates how that is presented and the value of that. I think about, the fine art space and how artists and painters are able to create beautiful pieces full of emotion and depth and time and energy and auction it off for ridiculous prices. And I think about works like this latest album from Rosalia, an artist who spent time and effort to craft a sound that is so human and is passion led. And I question why that isn't valued in the same space. I truly believe that quality and, the human creativity that goes on behind amazing pieces of music deserves to be valued as such. And I think the people that should be valuing it, the people that should be setting the price for what it's worth, should be artists themselves. I really do hope you've enjoyed this video. I think artists and teams out there, I hope you're able to gain some insights to and ask yourselves, some questions on the value of music, and do you feel like you're in control when it comes to setting that price? Making videos is something that's really new to me, and I don't know if you can tell, but I hope that you're able to feel the passion that I have for speaking on subjects like this. And all I want to do is help artists live in their passions. That's all I want to do. I want to be a support for artists and an advocate for artists and creatives. So that's why I make these videos. So if you enjoy it, I'm truly, truly grateful. Those who stayed to the end, truly, truly grateful. You know what to do. Engage with it, please. It just lets me know that there are people out there who are listening. So like, comment, subscribe, do all of that. How do you guys feel about the vinyls in the background? I just wanted to showcase some of my collection. I'm going to be switching it out for each video and stuff. But let me know if you listened to any of these before. Kendrick, of course, massive. Orion's Son, beautiful album. Whitney, I mean, it's Whitney. And Amy Blue, amazing, amazing album. These are artists. These are artists who are making something. So, yeah, support your artists. Buy some vinyl. Buy some merch. Give to your favorite artists beyond a Spotify and a DSP. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed. This video is longer than I thought, but I really do hope you've enjoyed. Remember to like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.